Since the war has been going on for almost 3 years, very significant changes have taken place both at the front and in the rear of both warring countries. Ukraine has gained the support of almost the entire democratic world. Russia has also found allies among totalitarian countries such as North Korea, Syria, and partly China. The battle line is also constantly changing. The Russian army has advanced in the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia regions, but lost its advantage in the Kursk region. The capture of Ukrainian land is very difficult for the Russian army. Every day, the Russian army loses about 1,500 soldiers, whom Putin sends as fodder. The Russian economy is also suffering greatly. The national currency is falling, and businesses are closing. On October 25th, the board of directors of the Central Bank of the Russian Federation decided to raise the key rate to 21% per annum. This is the third increase in a row and the highest in the history of the Russian economy. High lending rates are slowing down economic growth and purchasing power.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence for that. I mean, the Russians have announced a 15% cut in social security spending for next year. They've announced a series of tax rises for next year. It's clear that this year the Russians have started to pay for this war in ways they didn't have to. Next year they're going to pay even more for it. The Russians have used up at least half of their existing sovereign wealth fund on the war. And that's not invested money, that's just money that's gone up in smoke, quite literally. And so the Russian economy will struggle next year. It's had an immediate boost because of the shift to war production.
The Kremlin authorities are gradually destroying their state, and the Russian people are allowing them to do so. In general, Russians are a weak people who are afraid to go to rallies and protest against the decisions of their government. It is the people of Russia who allowed Putin to be in power for 25 years, to take root and establish influential connections, and now keep Russia on a tight leash. Most Russians are afraid to openly oppose the government, opting for tacit consent or the illusion of neutrality. The war has become a convenient excuse for the Kremlin to further intensify repression and destroy any manifestation of dissent. Now Russians are ready to go to war and kill other people for $2,000 a month. And all this because they consider it a lot of money, because in civilian life, it is almost impossible for an ordinary Russian to earn that kind of money. By the way, there is a video of a Russian man who signed a contract with the Russian army for money, fought in Ukraine, got wounded, but did not receive any help from Russia, and then realized that he did not want to fight anymore.
Подписал на 2 года в связи с тем, что я живу, Сразу, поясню следующее. Из 100% личного состава тот, кто воюет, типа за родину, нет там такого нахуй. Я вам говорю, со своего объектива мировоззрения. Больше 50% идут из-за денег. А этим он манипулирует, он повышает ставки, зарплаты, чтобы люди шли на войну. А что? Понтов я не вижу. Год я отслужил в мясорубочке. Добрый вечер. Прокрутился, пришел по ранению. Ничего не выплачивают. То, что вот эти лямы платятся, они высасываются обратно, блядь, этими же людьми, кем и платятся. За что играется война, я не пойму. Ничего не должен. Я ни у кого ничего не брал. И никому я не отдавать ничего не буду. Понятно? Я вам отдал долг. Там, в степях, блядь, в полях в Украине. Где не говоря о смертей врагов, сколько лежит наших тел. Просто лежит. Их никто нахуй не выносит. Они нахуй никому не нужны. Их там отослали в штурм, с них карточки пособирали. Башили их бабки. Не в бабках дело. Их человек сам отдаст, чтобы оттуда ебаться. Понимаете? А правды нет нигде. Понятно? Откройте, люди, глаза. Посмотрите, что пишут. Старикам засирают мозг. Конкретно засирают мозг. Вот этими СМИ А чё же они не показывают-то о правде нахуй? Где правда? Все борются за власть, за эту нынешнюю нахуй. А вас нагнули и 4 раза нахуй.
Nuclear blackmail is one of the few trump cards the Kremlin has left. Putin is trying to use the fear of nuclear war to force the world to make concessions. However, such threats only increase Russia's isolation, as even its conditional allies, including China, do not support escalation to this level. The Russian leader also understands that the use of nuclear weapons would not only cause World War III, but would also end any illusion that it is possible to control global stability. If Russia launches even one nuclear warhead, it will open a Pandora's box. The world will face a real threat of uncontrolled nuclear proliferation. Other states, in particular those with their own nuclear arsenal, will be forced to respond to protect themselves or deter the aggressor. This step will lead to an avalanche of distrust between the countries, which could be the beginning of a catastrophic chain of events when each nuclear power will consider any threat as a pretext for a preemptive strike. Such a development leaves no chance for a diplomatic settlement and actually means the end of civilization as we know it. Therefore, it is likely that the Russian leadership, despite the rhetoric and intimidation, refrains from actually using nuclear weapons, realizing that their use would not only be the beginning of the Third World War, but also the end of Russia as a state. It is clear that it is difficult for Ukraine to fight against the occupying Russian authorities, at least because Russia outnumbers Ukraine's population by 5-1. But with the support of Western allies, Ukraine continues to fight. Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region are proof of this. After the Ukrainians seized the Kursk region, Putin sent more than 50,000 of his troops to retake the territory. But as we can see now, Ukrainian troops still control Russian territory. Putin's strategy, which is based on mass mobilization and numerical superiority, has once again proved ineffective. Instead of quickly recapturing the lost territories, Russia lost even more personnel and equipment in an attempt to regain control of the Kursk region. The Kursk operation was a significant advantage for Ukraine. The preservation of Ukrainian control over the Kursk region has sent a powerful signal to the international community. It demonstrates that support for Ukraine brings real results. After this event, allied countries further stepped up their assistance to Ukraine by providing additional weapons, funding, and intelligence. For the Russian regime, this situation was a political disaster. The Kremlin tried its best to hush up this fact in the media, but the information quickly spread through social media. This was yet another confirmation of the weakness of the Russian regime, which is losing control of the situation both at the front and at home. Putin also understands his position. He has been playing with the Russian economy, and as a result, he has inflated a bubble that could burst at any moment. Russia's economy is entirely based on the military industry. Trillions of rubles are poured from the budget that do not create any additional value. That is, if money is spent on the production of a TV set, it pays off. The TV has its own buyer, and the benefits from its sale of this equipment are spread evenly across different sectors of the economy. However, when a $3 million tank is produced and it is blown to pieces somewhere in the fields near Pokrovsk, it means that you took money from the budget, produced this piece of iron, paid high salaries to factory workers, and as a result, this piece of iron simply disappeared. It is gone, and there is no profit from the expenses that were made. War is a vacuum cleaner that sucks money out of the budget and completely disrupts the logic of its normal functioning. Putin is indeed in a difficult political and economic situation of his own making. Launching a war against Ukraine has not only isolated Russia in the international arena, but also weakened its economy through sanctions, export restrictions, and loss of access to Western technology and resources. Ending the war could be a logical step to reduce economic pressure, but it is a near impossible option for Putin. It would mean an admission of defeat. Putin, who positions himself as a strong leader, would be forced to admit that his strategy has failed. This could cause internal discontent even among his inner circle. Loss of legitimacy. The policy of protecting the Russian world and fighting the collective West is the basis of his propaganda. A retreat would undermine the credibility of this ideology. Further economic instability. Even if the war ends, sanctions will remain, and economic recovery will take years, which may not be enough with the current level of international pressure. Besides, Putin is old and has nothing to lose. Capturing Ukraine is his life's goal. According to his plan, Ukraine was supposed to surrender in 3 days, but it turned out to be quite different. The Ukrainian people became a wall and began to resist the invading army. Having received such a defeat, dictator Putin began to raise the stakes, motivating recruits with high salaries, but at the same time, destroying his economy as such. For him, human lives are just a resource for achieving his goal and nothing more, and stupid Russians are happy to serve him. Thank you, friends. That's all for today. Subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with the latest developments. This video was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.